can get out of there. What in a cycle do we have today? Today's average video, you guessed it, we're going to be testing out 2 of the brand spanking new Gen 2 WATTCYCLE server rack batteries. And I'm going to try to make this video without very much fluff. Let's get to it. Okay, so as you already saw, we have 2 of the server rack batteries right here. The items that you're going to get is a user manual, a certificate. It's more of like a quality assurance certificate. You're going to get 2. I'm actually not sure what size they are. They could be around 4 AWG. Then you're going to get a ground lead right here, which is 14 AWG. You're going to get a communication cable for paralleling batteries, 2 positive and 2 negative battery terminal covers that are going to snap over your terminals right up here on the front of the batteries. And of course, it did come with M8 bolts on the front of the battery. You're going to get 2 negatives right here, 2 positives right here, 4 communication ports right here. First one is for CAN bus and RS-45. Next to that's going to be a linked in and linked out. This is for battery communication, parallel communication, stuff like that. And then the last one is for console or a computer, which it did not come with a cable for us to check that out. And I actually don't think I have a cable for that. Right here is going to be a really nice LCD screen, which we will turn on in just a second. Right below that's going to be your BMS power on and off button or switch. Like it says right here, a 125 amp Chint brand circuit breaker right here. Oh, I forgot there is a ground screw to connect your ground wire. And then finally is the mounting ears right here, which you do have to assemble and mount yourself. And then you get the foldable rack handles right here. It's basically removing and installing these 4 screws right here. And then if you want the handle installed, there are 2 screws, one right here and one right up here. So this is what the top of the battery looks like. It looks pretty cool. It's painted white and blue. It says WATTCYCLE up here at the top. It has a 100 amp BMS inside with a 3 amp active balancer. Otherwise, it's like a 30 milliamp passive balancer. And this is the Smart Edition with Bluetooth. So it does come with a Bluetooth app, which we'll check out in a couple of minutes. And just like most other server rack batteries, it is 51.2 volts nominal, also known as a 48 volt DC battery. It is 100 amp hour or 5,120 watt hours. It says metal fort here for some reason. I'm guessing just because it's a metal case. On the left-hand side, you get a little grid of holes right here. I'm guessing this is for heat dissipation. You're gonna get a barcode with the, I'm guessing this is like the Bluetooth number that you're gonna be looking for inside the app. And then we get the SKU number, the model number, voltage, capacity, energy, and then the date, which is 2025-10-1. So this is really only 2 months old. And then if we turn it to the back side, you're going to get kind of like the same information right here, same model number, energy, BMS, stuff like that, and then a couple of cautions. Make sure you use a dedicated lithium iron phosphate charger. On the right hand side, there isn't much other than the drilled holes for heat dissipation. Next thing we'll do is turn on the battery by hitting the switch button right there. And just FYI, this is a touch screen, but it doesn't work with this plastic finger. So you're gonna have to see my own fingers right here. Okay, so anyway, we have 6 different options in here. So first one, top left, is pack, and that is gonna give you your battery percent state of charge. I did charge these up, so we're sitting at 100% state of charge. On the top, you're gonna have voltage and current whenever you're using it. Right below that's gonna be your max and min voltages of the cells inside. Right below that's gonna be your max and min temperatures inside. The little blue box right here, this is gonna be your balancing current from your active balancer. Below that is the current setting. And then the last one says opening voltage differential on. So right now it's actually set on 26 millivolts because I figured out that that is actually a touch screen right there and you can change it. And I haven't figured out how to change it back. Same thing for the current setting. You can actually hit that and raise it. I'm not sure how far we can actually go. Maybe we can change that inside the app. The last box right here is the equalizing switch. You can turn that on or off. Again, that is touchscreen and you can change it on or off. Once you do change it, you hit the little right button and that will save it. Last thing on this screen is going to be your charge and discharge MOSFETs, and both of those are on right now. And then if we hit the back button on the top right, next one down is all of the cell voltages inside the battery pack. The only thing that I don't see in here is kind of like a highlighted high and low cell, you know, in a different color. So that would be kind of nice. And then in here you can hit the temperature button and you can read the temperatures inside. There's a total of 6 temperature sensors. 2 of those are on the BMS. The other 4 were probably out on the battery. Okay, we'll back out of that one. The alarm button, so if you have some sort of alarm happening while the battery's functioning, you can go in here and see what it is. Up here on the top right is chart. So this is gonna give you a little bit of a graph. It shows 0 amps to plus or minus 300, and it'll show like the last 30 minutes, and maybe you can turn the chart on or off. Next one down is setting. So in here is gonna be your communication settings over to your inverter. And you can change the CAN or RS-485 communication port or communications, and you just tap this over here and you can scroll up or down. There's a whole bunch in here. I'll just put a little picture on the screen, and then same thing for the RS-485. You've got quite a few to change or choose from right in there. Also on this page you can change some stuff for the LCD, so you can change the language, and then if you hit language, you can change the touch calibration, LCD brightness, and the LCD sleep time, or whenever you want the screen to shut off. And then last one on here is the product information. And another thing I figured out that you can do with this, instead of choosing whichever one you want, you can also swipe left or right and go to whatever page you want. Nice. All right, looking over some of the battery specifications in the manual real quick. So standard and maximum continuous charge, 50 to 100. So standard is 50, maximum is 100, and then maximum continuous discharge current is 100 amps. Overcurrent discharge protection is 120 amps for 10 seconds. Overcurrent charge protection, 110 amps plus or minus 10 amps. It doesn't give me a time there. The weight is 91.9 pounds and the dimensions are 19.09 by 17.72 by 5¼ inches. Okay. Right on this side, this is going to be all the stuff that's programmed inside the BMS. And then on the next page, shipping capacity, it's going to be shipped around 60% state of charge. The life cycle is 6,000 cycles at DOD 80%. After 6,000 cycles, you should still have 80% of your battery capacity left. Series and parallel connections, so 1 in series, so you really can't do any series, but you can parallel up to 20, and that is for communications. Otherwise, you can parallel as many as you want. Metal case, IP20. There is a couple of certifications down here. There is a couple UL certifications as well, but I don't think this is like UL rated to, you know, hook up to the grid and all that kind of stuff like some people do. If you're doing off-grid stuff, then that doesn't really matter. But I will put the listings right up on the screen for you to see. And I think that is about it. I mean, it does a pretty good job of explaining everything, but there was a couple things back here that I saw. There is a sleep and arousal mode. What's that? Okay, nothing arousal what I was thinking. Sorry, I think my lens zoomed in all by itself. So stacking and cabinet ESS installation instructions. It shows these little mounts that you can attach to the side or exterior of the battery, and then you can stack them on top of each other. Let me just change the page for you, and it shows a whole bunch of instructions using these little mounts, but I didn't get any mounts, so I'm just assuming that they don't come with those, and I'm not sure why they show all of this stuff in the manual. In here, it doesn't tell you what protocol to use, for inverters or anything like that. It's kind of like a guessing game, or you're gonna go off of the stuff that shows up in the screen whenever you get there. Yeah, I mean, the instructions are okay. They're not like magnanimous or anything like that. Next thing we are going to do, we are going to open it up and take a look inside, see how it's put together. Maybe we can scan a cell to make sure they're using BYD cells. That's what they list on their website. And then we'll see what else we can see. All right, let's do it. Turn it off. Just FYI, there is a little sticker here, so if you pull off the top, you're gonna void your warranty, I would imagine. Boom, there we go. So we'll just start back here on the back. We're just taking a look at everything to make sure everything looks correct. So what I'm seeing so far is they do have all of the leads labeled so far. There is a temperature sensor mounted right there, so that is nice to see. Okay, everything looks good. So we have the hump in the middle for expansion and contraction. I can already see there is a separator plate from the outside to the cells. I do see a separator plate in between every single cell so far. I don't know if you can see that. So there is a separator plate back there. And speaking of this side right here, I remember watching Evan Country View Solar's video, and he mentioned that this is so close to the edge here, you're basically right up against the edge here. So if you happen to dent or drop your battery on this side, you run the potential of actually damaging a battery. So I 100% agree. They should have some spacing along the back, because if you look up here towards the front, I mean, there is a lot of room. So if it were me, I would shift the battery in, you know, basically the same as what they have right here. That would be an improvement that I would also suggest. We got our wire routing. It's all loomed together, nice and neat through here. Same thing for underneath the center railing or support, whichever you would like to call it. And it's kind of underneath there as well. So it is all nice and neat and zip tied together. What I'm not seeing on every single screw right now is the quality control pin mark, or, you know, something that signifies it was quality control checked or torque checked. So it would be nice to see that. Oh, we do have a QR code in there, so we'll scan that in just a second. All of the relief ports are clear, but these ones are, they have some of that stuff, that sticky stuff, not really in the way or anything like that. It's just some of that stuff sticking out a little bit. That's not really a big deal, but everything is, for the most part, open and clear, so that all looks nice and neat. All right, got an extra light on the camera so we can take a look in here. So immediately, I actually like to see these bus bars coming off of the terminals over to the BMS and the circuit breaker, and then finally your terminals up here in the front. I can't say that I've seen that personally in any of the other silver rack batteries that I've taken apart. Typically they have a couple of, you know, like 6-gauge wires or a single 6-gauge wire, you know, just some puny stuff. So I do like to see these bus bars in here. That is pretty cool. So we'll take a look at the BMS right here. So there is a QR code right there. I'm imagining that's just taking you to their website. And I believe this is like their own brand of WATTCYCLE BMS. I'll try to get more information right down there if I can. Focus on that down there. There you go. There's some more information about the BMS right here. So it is a 16S 100 amp. It has 3 amp active balancing, which it says on this side right over here. None of these are glued in, which we typically see on server rack batteries nowadays. There's a few more things down there. Those ones look glued in, so I wonder why they didn't glue in any of the other ones. Heating, release, and Wi-Fi. They did glue some of the front connections. So the switch down there, some of these cable connection points down here, these ones are glued. Just the ones back here are not glued. Interesting. And I was just taking another look at these bus bars, and it kind of looks like there's some sort of glue on there, at least attaching the hardware to the bus bar. Same thing for the positive side. Might be a little tricky to see on camera, but it is there. And then those again are, if it'll focus, there's those little standoffs underneath holding all of those up, so you have something kind of solid to connect to. Going over to the other side, it doesn't appear there's any glue on these right down here, and there's no QA or quality control markings on those down there either. There, you can see the glue on the negative end. This is the side that goes out the front of the battery, so there is some sort of glue on these. Same thing for the positive right there. I also have the silicone glue stuff going into the circuit breaker, it looks like, on both sides. So that's another positive to see. Other than that, everything in here is nice and neat. It doesn't look like a pile of crap or anything like that. It actually looks really, really good. Okay, we will try to get a QR code if we can get it to read. I might have to pull off this railing right here. Hopefully that'll do it. Okay, no. No. All right, I'm not getting any of these to scan. All right, I went through and added the code manually, and I don't get any information whatsoever other than production date, 6/28 of 25, and then the produced number of cells, 200,627. That's basically it. Okay, got that rail back on, and I re-zip tied almost every place that they had a zip tie. I just ran out of the smaller zip ties. So that is back together. We're going to check out the Bluetooth app. So you do have to download the WATTCYCLE app, okay, which I already did. We need to turn on one of the batteries. We'll open up the WATTCYCLE app, and then this is gonna be the first screen that shows up. Might as well turn that one on too. I actually went in here and renamed these to WC1 for battery 1 and WC2 for battery 2. Okay, so we'll just check out WC1. So this is gonna be your home screen or whatever you see whenever you first turn it on. So obviously you can see right at the top we're sitting at 100% state of charge. Right below that where it says WC1, that's where you can change the name to the battery if you want to. Otherwise, it's got the number that's on the little sticker on the side of the battery. Right below that's gonna be your temperature sensors. You have a warning area, so I guess if there is a warning, just like the alarms right here, that would show up right there. Next to that's gonna be your battery voltage, amps, and watts. And if we click on those, it'll give you your battery status for all the cells inside, so your highest and lowest, your average, and then your differential. So right now we're at 0.001 to 0.003, which is excellent. We'll exit out of that. If I click on amps, it doesn't do anything. If I click on watts, that doesn't do anything. For the home screen on the battery, you have the charge and discharge. That's actually under pack and discharge MOSFETs that I showed you on the screen. You can turn those on and off, and it does change right over here. I know you can't see it, but you just have to take my word for it. And we'll turn it back on, boom, it is back on. And that's really, there's nothing else that you can click on. Oh, temperatures, you can click on that if you want to see temperatures too. Other than that, there's nothing else in here. One thing I did learn from Evan's video, Country View Solar, again, if you go over to About, I eventually would have found it. But anyway, underneath here, you can actually go under Settings, and you can see all the parameters that they have set in the BMS, you know, right here. And I guess technically you could change them if you want to. Honestly, I'd probably just leave them. So anyway, max charge voltage is 58.4. That is basically full charge. We probably don't want to change that one. Max charge current is set at 120. There's some temperature ranges in there. Minimum discharge voltage is 40. Max discharge current is 120. So basically 120 up and 120 down. More temperatures, sleep waiting time, and then parallel mode, which is important, especially if you have two batteries like this and you want to parallel them together with communication. We actually want to turn that on, and since these are the exact same battery, we're going to hit exact same match. And the only thing that I'm not seeing so far, at least in this app, is a way to change the active balance current and that type of stuff, because if you remember when we were looking at the screen, you can tap that little spot and change the current. I don't know how to change that in here. I don't know if there's a place for that to happen in here or not. We'll go back to the Bluetooth page and we're going to connect to battery 2 because I want to parallel this one as well for whenever we parallel those together. Boom, there you go. That's the app in a nutshell. All right, next we're going to parallel these two batteries together with the supplied communication cables. And just FYI, these are kind of too short in my opinion, because if I plug into the out On this battery, this is going to be master battery or battery number 1, and we go down to the linked in for battery number 2. That's really all the length that we get. If you put these batteries in a rack, these wires are going to be too short. Okay, anyway, we're going to turn these on, and since we did the paralleling, everything should show up in here correctly, I hope. Why aren't you on? There we go. If we go up to pack up here, you can see it says system, and that means we are connected to the battery below it. So we should be able to kind of cycle back and forth. If I hit the right button, there we go. Now we're actually reading battery 2 down here. Okay, so 52.8485, 52.8485, and then we can switch back to battery 1, and they're just slightly different voltages, 52.92, 52.83. Another thing you can do in here is hit the system button, and that will give you your average percent state of charge between the two batteries. It'll let you know how many amps you're using, and then the total system capacity right here, which is 200 amp hours. Okay, and that is, I think that's basically it. Yeah, chart is the same for 300 amps. We could check the cells in here. So this would be battery 1. Okay, I guess we cannot do different cell voltages on there. That's okay. I just figured we would be able to. All right, another thing that I figured out with the touch screen up here and changing your active balancing current and all that kind of stuff. Previously, I was just pushing the button just like this right here, and I thought that's how you did it. What I figured out is you can actually just hold down and it'll just raise automatically until you let go. And I think we can go all the way up to 50 millivolts, basically 5 to 50. Oop, yeah, it went up to 50. I'm gonna leave it on 5. And same thing for the current setting. You can hold that down and it goes from 0.5 all the way up to 3 amps. Boom, just like that. And for me, I'm probably just gonna leave the differential on 5 millivolts and the active balancer on 3 amps if I ever use the active balancer after the initial charge. That's actually what I was gonna mention next is whenever you first get this battery, it's most likely not gonna be perfectly balanced. So I would make sure the equalizing switch is on. That way it'll use the active balancer until you fully charge the battery. The battery is going to balance out. Once it's fully balanced out and full charged, I would go ahead and hit that off and then hit the right button, because you shouldn't really need the active balancing after the first initial charge and balance. All right, future average Joe, I forgot to do this test earlier, so I opened up battery pack number 2, and just FYI, it looks exactly like battery 1 over there. Anyway, I forgot to do the temperature disconnect, so that's what we're gonna do right now. Got the charger over here, charging the battery at 5 amps, and I'm gonna take my little can of dust off and just kind of hose down one of these temperature sensors in here. There's a cat. I'm gonna attempt to do this without removing one of the temperature sensors. So I do have the temperatures sitting up here, as well as the screen that you won't be able to see. Hoping I can see something. I don't know which temperature sensor this is. Okay, it's gonna be number 1. There it goes. It actually already stopped charging. So all of that works just fine. Oh, it actually just kicked back on. Temperature rose, which I just stopped the screen recording, but we're back up to 40, 45, 49, 52, so it is warming up quite nicely. And it started charging whenever it did. Okay, now back to wherever we're at in the video. All right, so the batteries are connected in parallel, and I'm using both cables on each side because we won't be able to pull enough power with just one 4 AWG wire. So I use both. All right, and then I have the inverter connected on the positive up here and then staggered down there, and that is going over to the 12,000 watt Lux Power hybrid inverter right over here. And that goes to a little tiny sub panel right here. And then we have two L1430s right over here. And our load is gonna be the charge verter and then the eco-worthy version of the charge verter. And we're gonna be dumping that energy from that battery over to the SunGold Power battery right here. And then, like I said, if we need a heater to raise the amperage up a little bit, we'll have that there. All right, so what I want to accomplish here, of course, is turning on the batteries and getting it to communicate with the Lux Power inverter. Again, if you have a EG4, it would be basically the same. I'll probably turn both of those on full blast. We'll take a look at the screens on the batteries and then maybe the app. And then what I want to try to do is see if we can get up over 100 amps per battery. And it would be nice if we could get up to that 120 amps per battery that the BMS is set. And if we can push it up above that, then I guess we'll see what happens once we get going. All right, so we will open this up. We will turn on the battery breakers. So we'll turn those on. All right, both battery packs are still communicating together. Hopefully that is turning on. Boom, we do have communication. It says 99%. We can turn on the load breaker. Turn on this battery over here, 47%. Go ahead and flip our breaker on over here. There we go. Boom. All right, charge verter settled in around 93 amps. Up here on the battery packs, the upper one, master, is doing 56.7 amps. Secondary battery is doing 59.2. So it is fairly close. Kick on this one right here. Boom. Check in up here. So this is going to be the master battery. We're doing 96 amps. And battery number 2, we're doing 100.4. Nice. All right, just put my clamp meter on the positive lead from the batteries, and that is showing 199.2 amps. So basically, we're at the max discharge rate. However, we should be able to go up to, actually, you know what? I'm gonna let this run for like 10, 15 minutes. And the time right now is 3:05. So at 3:20, we will check it. I'm not even sure what that battery can be charged at. I meant to say 149.8 amps. So while we're in the 15-minute wait period time, we are going to open up the WATTCYCLE app just to take a look at this while it's all up and running. Battery number 1, or the primary battery, and that's showing 91% state of charge. It's 73 degrees Fahrenheit. Right in the center, you can see our battery voltage is 50.74. We're pulling 96.3 amps, so if we do this for 1 hour, we're gonna drain the battery down to 0% state of charge. And then right next to that is 4,892 watts. All right, so we're kind of at the max of this battery right here. Let me go back to the dashboard and we'll check on battery 2. This one was pulling 100.6 amps, or 5,105 watts. Again, 1 hour of runtime. I'm gonna let this run for the 15 minutes and then I'll be right back. All right, time now is 3:23, so we're just over that 15-minute mark. Everything's still running perfectly fine. I'm logged into battery 1 and you can see we're pulling 97 amps now. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is turn on the space heater on low. That's 218 amps. I'm gonna go to high. It's 236. And if we look at the battery, at least battery 1, we're doing 115 amps, and we're getting a warning right now, the discharge overcurrent alarm. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to go back to Bluetooth. I want to go over to battery 2 and see what we're pulling on that one. Got the same alarm. We're doing 119.2 amps on here. Okay, so just shy of the cutoff. All right, just plugged in a heat gun, so I'm going to turn that on as well. So first is going to be the heater. Boom, that is on. We're pulling 236 amps. I'm going to go to low on the heat gun. It's 254 amps. That is 124 on battery 1. 120. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we did shut off. So the BMS is cutting everything as it should, which is exactly what we want. Perfect. Okay, so that's battery 2. Let me go to the alarm. Discharge overcurrent protection. Let me switch over to battery 1. Discharge overcurrent protection. So that did work out. Oh, look at that. We can click on that. The discharge current exceeds the set protection value. Solution, reduce the load. Okay, cool. All right, that worked exactly how it should. The next, oh. Well, it just turned back on. Alrighty, that worked exactly as it should. The BMS is set to basically shut off after 120 amps. I just don't remember what the time limit is set at. I don't know if it's like 10 seconds or 5 seconds. If I can find that in here, I will tell you, and if I can't find it right away, I'll just flash that up on the screen. Yeah, I'm just not gonna look right now, but it did work as it's supposed to. Next thing I'm gonna do is recharge the batteries back up, and then I'm gonna do 2 capacity tests on each battery. First one is gonna be with the active balancer on, and then the second one will be with the active balancer off, and then we will see what we got. So give me probably like 2 days or so, and then I will be right back. Alrighty, fast forward a couple of days and I have done 5 capacity tests total, but one of those doesn't count because I wasn't here for the ending and I missed it. And for those of you that know, or maybe you don't have the problem, but it's only me, I have updated the Victron Smart Shunt to the latest firmware, software, whatever it is. The problem is if you're not there when the battery shuts off and then you turn it back on, and it won't give you the accurate number. It's always lower. Anyway, we're not going to count that one, and we're going to go with the 4 that I originally planned on doing. So every capacity test that I did was a 0.2C rate, which is roughly 20 amps. The first 2, one on each battery, was with the active balancer on, and then the other 2 were with the active balancer turned off. All of them were the exact same for 103 amp hours or 5.3 kilowatt hour. So that is fan-freaking-tastic. Okay, I don't want to waste too much more of your time, so we'll go over my pros and cons that I could come up with right meow. And again, these are not in any particular order. So we will start with the pros first. So the build quality overall is not bad. It's actually really, really good. Everything was clean inside. Like I said earlier, it wasn't a pile of crap in there. There wasn't just wires thrown around everywhere. Everything was neatly routed and zip tied, and it looked really, really good inside. It was nice and neat. The next one, which probably should have been number 1, is what I'm trying to do with these videos is basically make sure that the battery does what they list on their website or in the manual right here. And this one does, it does basically everything that it's listed to do inside the manual or on the website. So that's a plus. The next one, which I personally like to see, is those bus bars inside. Like I said, I've taken apart quite a few different server rack batteries, and this is the first one that I've seen that has bus bars going from the batteries over to the BMS or over to like the positive terminals up here in the front. Most of them have like a couple of smaller cables or wires there, just barely making the cutoff for the amp rating, and some of them I don't think actually do. So I do like to see the bus bars in here, so that is a big plus for me. The next one is, which I just mentioned, is we did get 103 amp hours out of the advertised 100 amp hours with or without the active balancer, and then that kind of rolls into the next one. Is it actually has an active balancer which you can control through the touchscreen on the front, and you can have it on or off, whatever you want. And that one actually rolls into the next one. Is it does have a really nice LCD touchscreen. This is probably the nicest LCD screen that I've seen on basically all the batteries that I have. Most are kind of like those generic ones. This one's pretty nice. The next one is kind of like an in-between. It's not really a pro, but it's not really a con, but it does come with some of the UL certifications, but it's not listed as like a UL certified battery that you can connect up to your system and interact with the grid. So basically these are still an off-grid battery, but it does come with some UL certifications. And the last one is the price. At the time of this video, it is $720, which is pretty cheap. It's on par with probably the AOUSK battery and the EcoWorthy battery and maybe even the VATRER batteries, but I would have to look at that one again. So it is priced pretty well. However, you can get a 6% discount if you use my code listed down below. And the last part of that is it also comes with free shipping and a 5-year warranty, but you can get 2 more years warranty if you like register the batteries or whatever. Okay, so that is my pros list. Let's move on to the cons. Okay, con number 1 is there are no fire extinguishers inside the batteries. It would be nice to have the fire extinguisher inside. The next one is the backside of the battery is that real thin, you know, the sheet metal, and the cells are, well, they're right up against that back wall. It would be nice if they could move those towards the front a little bit and then add that little space on there, because honestly, whenever you pick these things up, you pick them up like that and you set them on that back side, at least I do. You run the potential of maybe damaging one of those batteries, unless you're really, really careful, but I know stuff happens. The next one is the manual. I mean, there is, you know, some pretty good, helpful information in here, but there's a lot of stuff that they left out. It needs some help. Like, it shows a lot of that stuff that I was talking about for the little brackets that don't come with the batteries. There's like 3 or 4 pages that talk about, you know, stacking these batteries up. Why do we need that in there? Unless this is just more of like a generic manual and it was probably with an older version that did come with those brackets. I'm not entirely sure. And also in here, it doesn't list any inverter protocols that you can set. You're basically looking at the screen and hoping you're picking the correct one. It doesn't show all the things that you can click on the LCD screen. Like some of those things I accidentally hit and I was like, oh wow, that's cool. Basically for the active balancer and changing those, your differential, I didn't know you could click on those. I just accidentally hit there on the screen and I saw it move. And then the other thing, of course, swiping left or right. It doesn't mention, at least I didn't see it in the manual anywhere in here. And one last thing that the manual does not show or mention anything about is paralleling the batteries together. Whenever you have to go into the app and then go to the About section or whatever it is, and then to settings, scroll all the way down to the bottom and then hit parallel batteries. This doesn't mention anything like that in here. So I think the manual does need some help. The next one is inside the app, you're not able to change the active balancer settings. If there is a way in there, I haven't figured it out yet. So it would be nice to change those. Otherwise, you have to go poke around on the screen. The next one kind of goes back to the build quality. Yes, it is built really, really nice. However, like I mentioned, there are no quality control markings are in there. Yes, it does have a quality control sticker in there, but it would be nice to see a mark on every single bolt, screw, and all that kind of stuff to make sure, you know, it was quality control checked. The next part of that is the inside. A lot of the connections towards the front were not glued. Some of them were and some of them weren't. I'm sure that was meant by design, but in my opinion, they should be gluing all the connections so they can't accidentally come out in shipping or handling or whatever. And then the last one would be the communication cables that come with the batteries. In my opinion, these are just way too short. The reason I'm gonna say that is if you put it into the eco-worthy server rack, for example, there's a good like 3/4 inch gap, and in their newest version, the gap is even more. These are not even gonna come close to letting you put those in. So in my opinion, these should be at least 10 to 11 inches long. The only way that these are gonna work is if you have like a real server rack and you put these in and the batteries are almost stacked on top of each other, you know, kind of like how I had them stacked on the table. Of course, then they will work just fine. Boom, there you go. That's gonna be my pro cons list, and I really don't have much else to say. So if anybody is interested in picking up these batteries, again, they're not bad. I don't really know why they're actually calling them budget batteries these days, because the quality, in my opinion, for the budget battery has gone up like a lot in the last couple of years. So yes, these are a budget battery, but you do get a lot of bang for your buck. So anyway, if anybody's interested in the WATTCYCLE Gen 2 server rack battery, of course, I'm gonna have affiliate links down below along with the discount code and all that kind of fun stuff. If anybody has any questions, comments, or concerns, or maybe you saw something that I just didn't happen to say or show on camera, make sure you put those down in the comment section so everybody else can see those. And if this video was helpful in any way possible, make sure you like that smash button on your way out, and I'll see you on the next. Almost lost it because of the bag. Boom, check in on here. I don't know if you can see it very well. The upper battery, god damn it.